To be or not to be? That definitely is the question when it comes to leadership. Welcome to The Being Leader. I'm Annabelle Graham. So a fair few years ago now, I was with some other coaches on a development session, and we were asked the question, are you a being coach or are you a doing coach? And it was just left to hang. Absolutely no explanation. And I'll be honest, I sat there and I looked at one of the other girls in the room, and I'd only met the people there that day, so I didn't know them. And we sort of looked around, and I think we were all feeling a little bit vulnerable and a little bit unsure. And because in my head, I really hadn't a clue what I'd just been asked. It could have been asked in Greek and I would have probably had a better idea. And I looked at her and I mouthed the words, "What's she on about?" Now, we did go on to answer the question, and to be fair, a friendship was formed on that day, and I'm still in touch with her. And we sort of came to the conclusion that we probably were being coaches, but it was something that we really had to get our heads around. And I think when you start to apply it to leadership, what a being leader is something that we don't always think about, but we definitely have them. And we need to start questioning whether that's the type of leader that actually we want to become. So when we think about how we deal with people, when you get requests, get asked to do things, react to challenges at work and different stresses and issues, we often fall into two camps. First of all, we have the doing people. They're the ones that just get on with stuff. And that's often for a few reasons. It may be because the stuff genuinely needs doing and it needs to happen, and that's their way of coping by being busy, by moving around. It may be because doing stuff, anything, allows them to block out what's really going on. So it's a way of distraction, as it were, or avoidance. And then we've got those people who need to achieve, who just have to tick things off the list and need to be able, to sort of plant a flag on something and say, right, I've done it. They're the doing people. They're the people who look at output and productivity and what people produce as stuff that's important to them. And we've seen that probably a lot in the last few weeks, because it's sometimes how people cope with change. And often it isn't even stuff that's big stuff. It's those it's not important principles or strategic objectives or things that we actually need to achieve. It's those little activities that sort of happen in their myriad every day, every week, every year. It's the stuff that fills our inboxes, that keeps us busy. It's those things that make us say, oh, I'm really busy, and complain to friends or neglect our family or never do those hobbies that we wanted to do, and spend time with people that we spend time with because we're doing stuff. So in a world where being busy sometimes is seen as a badge of honour, those doing people are the ones who wear the badges and have the shiniest halos and put themselves out there. You know the ones. You see them on social media. And they're the ones that you just end up comparing yourself to because you realise you haven't done anything near as much that day or in that month or that life. And your inner critic starts to berate you and beat you up for it. So they're the doing people. But that isn't always the answer, because we then have the being people. These are the ones who look at things just a little bit differently, who start to dig under the surface and ask the challenging questions about, why are we doing something? What's it actually going to deliver? And more to the point, is it the right thing to do? They're the ones who start looking at how they're behaving, how the people around them are behaving, and the psychology of it, and start to unpick exactly what that reaction and response means. These are the people who know why they're doing what they're doing, who are really clear on their purpose, on their identity and what their role is. Otto Scharmer's theory U concept relates to this really nicely. And he says that when we start to shift the inner place from which we operate, we really start to understand what is required of what we're doing. And that's about thinking about where we place our attention. Because when we really concentrate from where we're coming from and what we're looking to achieve, our energy follows it. Therefore, that our understanding of that is really key. So the being people are those who not only know why they're doing what they're doing, they're often really clear on their methodology and on how they're going to go about things. They're not there for the quick wins or to get the badges of honour or to plant the first flag. They are there to play that long game, to really enable people to develop, to understand behaviour and context and environment. They think about how they want to show up so that they can best influence the agenda, and also how they need to be at their best, and also how to enable other people to be at their best too. The being people have a real sense of self and understanding of themselves, and they're willing to be reflective, to hold the mirror up to how they act, to sort of see those blind spots and think about how they behave, and to decide whether it's the right thing. They're also willing to hold that mirror up to others and to really dig under the surface and understand what's going on, and to really be there for people. So when we think about that being and doing, and have started to equate it to leadership and how we are as leaders, I think it gives us two approaches. So approach one, the doing leaders. That's probably what we're used to being. They're the ones who make things happen, that drive their teams, that are all about success and competition and winning and making things happen and being there first and getting there and achieving. And there's an energy and a pace to it, but it's a fast energy and it can be a little bit frantic. And often people just get caught up in things, because how they achieve it isn't always important. They don't always sit back and reflect and understand how they got to where they got to. Instead, they get caught up in that myriad of stuff. There's always the next thing to be doing, and they don't always stop and think about the impact on themselves, the people within their teams, and those who they lead, and also the others within their organisation. They don't see that. They're often much more likely to pay attention to objectives or KPIs and outputs rather than thinking about the culture and working out how what they're doing is having an impact and how it's changing the way in which their teams and their culture around them is working, and actually what that means for the long term. There's never a pause. So that's the doers. We then have approach two, the being leaders. The being leaders play more of the long game. They realise they're not going to get a quick win. That if they're going to build success, they're going to have some failures, and they're sort of quite chilled about that. They recognise that they might fall at the first hurdle, and they're sure enough of the sense of their own selves to be okay with that. They don't see it as the end of the game. They've got a growth mindset from that point of view, and they're willing to look at how they operate and what they're doing and how they're showing up, and more to the point, they then use that to tap into what their teams are doing and the impact that they have. They're going to be much more willing to look at capability and understand, does everyone know how to do what they're doing? And if not, how do we get that to be working in the right way? And what behaviours do we need to be demonstrating? What's the culture and the environment in which we need to be working? And how do we make it be the right one? Because when we fix all of that stuff from the bottom, when we get it in the right place, then things sustain, because we'll enable people to be the right way. We'll couple that with skill, and the team will really get success, but it'll be a success that sticks, that stays there and lasts long after that leader has gone on. And it might take time. It's not going to be the quick fix, because it requires behaviour change from other people. And they need to start to become leaders too, to look at how they operate, to what they do, and the manner in which they go about things and the impact that they have. And that isn't always easy. People change for two reasons. Either they want it enough, they buy into it, they see the benefit, or they have no choice. And when change is forced on us, it's got to be sustained before we're willing to really go with it and understand it and cope with it in a good way. Therefore, quick wins are great, but they're like a yo-yo, it goes down and bounces back up equally as fast. So not everyone is going to be up for that behaviour change, because it requires everyone to be willing to hold the mirror up to themselves and really look and say, did what I do today, was it the right thing? And could I have done it differently? And would it have been more useful if I did that instead? And that's difficult. That means we've got to look into the deeper recesses of our soul, and most of us don't really want to look at that because it's not a particularly pleasant place. It's that shadowy dark self, the version that we'd like to have kept in a cupboard. And that means often people don't make that shift because it's too hard. It's way too difficult. And it requires them to open themselves up a little bit more. It needs us to leave our ego at the door and to not want that glory and success, and to really recognise that success comes in sustainability of what we've put in place and having the right behaviours. It doesn't come from being first or winning or being, the one who makes it at the top of the competition. That's the flash in the pan. That sustainability is in the consistency. Now, if I reflect back onto my career as a leader, I don't think I ever realised I was being a leader, and I probably was. I knew I didn't like quick wins, and I knew I used to irritate every boss I ever worked with because they'd call me in to go and deal with a problem team or a problem region or division. And I would do, but it wouldn't be a quick fix. I'd always say, well, it's going to take me 12 months. And I think they'd think, well, why is it going to take you that long? Surely you can just sort it out in 3. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm quite good at doing, but I'll do things for the right reasons. And while I can make stuff happen, it's got to be the right stuff. And I also always recognised that if I wanted to build a team that worked and sustained way past when I was going to be with them, then I'd have to think about how they went about things and how they behaved and how we went around building the capability, because that was the things that were important. Those were the things that would enable them to continue without me. Otherwise, I was just the puppet master, and that was silly. So that meant I had to tap into their values and gain their trust and get them on board and really create people who could self-sustain rather than just deliver the quick fixes. And that, to be fair, wasn't always doable, and it didn't always happen because it didn't get necessarily what people wanted straight away, and it took time. And often in businesses we don't have that time. It's just not a luxury, and that's why we put sticking plasters over things when we, instead of dealing with the root of the problem and really sorting it out properly. So I know the long game works, and I know that being aware of how people do things matters. And I know that when I have those conversations with leaders and with other coaches, I spend all my time thinking and exploring and unpicking that psychology of people's behaviour and really getting people to think about why they do what they do and how they show up. Because what we see is really the tip of the iceberg, and it's crucial that we get people to start to recognise the way they present themselves matters and how being present matters, because only in starting to be aware of what we do we increase our impact and make a difference to ourselves and those around us. So I want you to consider, where did you come from? Where are you coming from? What system shaped you, whether it be your family, your culture, your school, your university, the businesses that you've worked in? When you think about the habits that have been formed, those really great habits that help you, where did they come from? Where did you pick them from? And also, what stuff have you picked up along the way that really just gets in the way and is a bit frustrating, and the things that happen when you kick yourself? Think about what's important to you? How do you need to be now? For your family, for your friends, for the people you work with, your colleagues, your team, your customers even. And what enables you to be truly present and be the best version of you? And what enables you to really pay attention and understand where you need to be coming from to enable others? Now, I know they're quite big questions. And in coming episodes, we're going to break that down a little bit. Just for now, when you go away, start to think about and noticing when you're in doing leader mode. And ask yourself why. Why am I being that person? Why am I trying to stick a flag on the top of it and be the one who gets there first and makes it happen? Really tap into that why. Because in doing that, you'll start to recognise how you're being. And that's that first step to finding and recognising the being leader within you.